It's an extraordinary challenge, and I think that there are a couple of things that we get to keep in mind as we figure out this transformation and healing process. Let me stick with my notes. Andrew Rice, writing about Uganda, says that the teeth may smile, but the heart does not forget. And part of that, in my opinion, has to do with how do we heal from the hurts of conflict? How do we heal from the hurts of violence? How do we heal from the hurts of war? I'm going to produce or share with you a couple of propositions about this. And that proposition has to do with the idea that, one, conflict hurts the human spirit. It hurts the human soul. And that ending conflict can only happen when the healing of that hurt has occurred. Humankind needs healing to reclaim our capacity to transform ourselves and the societies that cluster us. So here are two propositions about ending conflict. Number one, I'm suggesting to you that ending conflict depends on ending oppression, on ending the disequal, inequitable distribution of the resources of the world. This discussion reflects on strategies for healing and the extension of soul healing to the transformation of the world. In other words, as we heal humans, then we can heal the world. That without the healing of the hurts that humans have experienced, then the transformation of the world is not actually really possible. Ending conflict depends on, therefore, healing the hurts inflicted by violence, and we get to consider violence in all its manifestations. Not just that produced by war, but that produced by oppression, that produced by poverty, that produced by inequities in the distribution of the human resources. Until humans have an opportunity to end oppression and to heal from the hurts that have been produced by that oppression, conflict will remain inevitable and ever present. Now, what I want to start with is to remind you that we deserve a good world. We deserve a world. We deserve a world that supports us and that supports our possibilities, that supports all of our potentialities. We deserve a world that supports our desire to be all that we can be. Now, one of the things I want to say to you is this. The world that we live in has everything that we need to support us in our desires to live all that we can be, to live toward our potentialities. The world has great air, it has beautiful seas and oceans, it has abundant resources, and it has abundant, adequate, and growing technology. I found out these trees, Prometheus they are called, 5,000 years old, some of the oldest living organisms on Earth. And what they do is make sure that we humans have good air. We have abundant seas and the resources of those seas. Now, if there are enough resources in the world as it currently exists for all of us, and you know these statistics, for all of us to have good lives, then why don't we? First of all, we have to have a vision of what that is. What I want you to do is to think for a moment about your vision of a good world. We must be able to imagine it. You remember the prophet who said that without a vision, my people perish. Or, thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Ask for it and it shall be given. Without a vision, my people perish. Or, as Sister Khan told Alex, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So I want you to think for a moment about your vision of a good world. I'm going to ask you to turn to the person sitting next to you, to your right or your left, or in front of you or behind you, and take a moment. Eric, you'll have to time us for this. I'm going to give you 1 minute each to tell them your vision of a good world. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to walk you through this so that we're not all talking at once. First, I want everybody to get a partner. To your right or to your left, front or back. Go ahead, get a partner. With each other. Okay. That's 1 minute. That's your time. The challenge to you is to keep thinking about this. And not only to keep thinking about it, but to continue to share it with others. To put your vision out in whatever ways that you can, or continue to put your vision out in whatever ways you can, so that both the universe and those around you can know what it is. I'd love it, however, if we got 1 or 2 people here now to share with the rest of us your vision for a good world. Can I see the hands of 3 people who'd be willing to share your vision with the rest of us? I see 1. So remember your number. You're 1.
A lot of people all over the world try to get my colour. They risk skin cancer trying to get it. I mean, I've got it made. I don't have to worry about my skin. I don't throw creams on. I can be brown, clothes, makeup, jewellery, look so different on someone who's brown. As I was growing up, young people
I'm going to make it short. You got another half a second to tell us the rest.
Freedom of prejudice, and that everyone should have enough to eat and not have to worry where their next meal is coming from. I'm overweight. I've put on weight. I've got to lose weight. But I think it's unfair that people haven't enough to eat.
Thank you. So we have a vision of the world where there is the end of prejudice, discrimination. A vision here of a world where everyone is treated with respect. The end of division, the end of us and them, where we can all come together and be treated with respect. Thank you. And number 3.
My vision is that people, just touch a little bit something that you said, is that everybody's able to reach their full potential. And for me, our full potential is to be very peaceful people and very good people. And I think if we're all able to reach that, we will only wish and do good for each other. And then I believe that will have a bigger effect from our families and friends groups, our local communities to our international communities. And I think that will, in my perfect world, that would bring balance and peace and harmony to the whole world, and to how we treat, not just how we treat each other, but also how we treat our resources.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that seems to summarize my speech. I guess I don't have to be dragged off the stage. So, a world where we are enabled to meet our full potential, which would mean that would happen on the individual level, on the societal level, which would be translated into the world. It would be translated into how we treat our resources and the allocation of those resources, which would in fact enable the fulfillment of the human potential. So, I'm sure that your vision has some connection with the visions that have been articulated here, with the vision that I'm going to share with you. And as Robert Kennedy said, each of these pebbles dropped in the water will connect eventually, and we will indeed transform the world. That is the potential that we represent being here together today, and the potential that we want to see manifested in this world in our lifetime. Thank you for being here, and thank you for holding out your vision for what a good world might look like and what this world might transform into. So, my theory of conflict, which I think is necessary in order for this creation of a good world to actually be achieved. I have said that it is necessary to end conflict, that ending conflict depends on ending oppression, that ending conflict ends on providing ways to heal the hurts that have been inflicted by conflict, by violence, and that violence takes many forms, including poverty, oppression, the disequal distribution of the resources of the world. And that until humans end oppression and heal humans, we cannot heal the world and therefore transform it. Proposition 1 about ending oppression has a number of tenets, but I won't go into those into detail just because of my time. I expect Eric to stand up at any moment, and that won't be good. So,
about 20 minutes.
I have 20 minutes remaining.
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay. I have a little niece who is 3, and she says, let's play you say yes and I say no. And so we spend hours with me saying yes, and she gets to say no. And so I don't know how long we can play that this morning, but let me race forward. Proposition 2, I want to go into some detail. 4 tenets. Hurt, unhealed, reproduces itself. Humans are hurt by violence. Information is not enough, and that healing is necessary. So I won't go into more detail about hurt being unhealed, reproducing itself, except to say these couple of things. One, that hurt happens on an individual level, on a community level, on a regional level, on a global level. It happens on the micro, on the meso, on the macro level. And that unhealed, it reproduces itself on all these levels, as we have all seen in our own experiences. Now, conflict and violence is instigated by unhealed hurt. There are many sources of hurt. Let me just name specifically oppression, colonialism, imperialism, neo-imperialism, racism, sexism, classism, ableism, heterosexism, anti-Semitism, ethno-religious oppression, ageism, linguicism. Unmet human basic needs are some of the key sources of human hurt that must be healed. Let me go on. Information is not enough. Many of us are involved in, have participated in. My whole career has been based on sharing information, providing training for people to understand some of these issues about the social justice issues, some of these issues about oppression, some of these issues about violence, about conflict. And one of the things that seems increasingly clear to me is that ending conflict, healing hurt, information is not enough. Consider people, this is my best example, and I could give you lots of examples to illustrate that giving people information is not going to be enough to do what we need done, but my best example is about people who smoke. Now, I won't ask if there are any people in this room who smoke. What I will ask is whether there are people in this room who know people who smoke. Raise your hand if you know people who smoke. All right. If you know people who smoke, then you know what I'm talking about. Here's a basic fact. Smoking will kill 1 billion people before the end of this century. Of those people, one of the things that we know, and I think it's true in most parts of the world, certainly in the United States, every time you pull out a pack of cigarettes and you want to take one out to light it up, you're faced with a little sign that says, "This will kill you." Do you have that on your cigarette packs? Yes. So everybody has that information. This will kill you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, Barbara? Yes, okay, good. You're doing well. Now, these people that you know who smoke, are these illogical, irrational people, generally speaking? No. Okay. Are these death-seeking, life-defying people? No. Generally, these are people that you respect, that you care about, and so on. And nevertheless, you notice that they take out this death-producing stick, put it in their mouth, and light it up. Obviously, information is not enough. Are you with me? Yes. Okay. Healing is necessary. Until they get a chance to heal from what has produced this addiction to this, then they will keep doing it even though they know they are in the process producing their own death. Healing is necessary. Now, I'm supposed to stick with my notes. Let me see if I can. We were engaged in one of those key places, giving people a chance to notice where they have been hurt. I had wanted to give you a chance to engage in some of this process, but you'll have to do it on your time because my time is running out. So, at some point, it would be great if you had a chance to reflect with someone else listening to you, not commenting on it, not judging your experience, not judging you by your experience, but just listening to you talk about your experience of conflict, your experience of violence. What happened? What do you remember thinking and feeling? What do you remember doing or wanting to be done in that situation? Well, let's begin with understanding who we are as humans. Everything that you do will be based on your particular understanding of the nature of humans. Now, I'm sharing with you my understanding, my beliefs about the nature of humans, but what we do to end violence and to end conflict, to transform the society, to produce peace in the world will depend on what you believe to be true about us as humans. I'm putting out a notion that humans are brilliant, they're powerful, they're connected, they're loving, they're good, they're zestful, they're beautiful, that this is inherently true about us, that we can be distanced from this truth about ourselves, but this truth about ourselves cannot be eliminated, and therefore, whatever things we do must be couched in an understanding of this basic nature of us as humans. That society, something about society, the ending of oppression depends on figuring out how to more equitably allocate the resources of the world. There are enough resources in the world for every human, every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth to live a good life.
It's just about what are the principles that we hold about the distribution of those resources. Do we think that it's really okay for some people to amass great wealth while some people live in poverty? I've written here some examples comparing, for instance, principles in the U.S. with principles in Japan, principles about how companies operate in the U.S. compared with principles in Sweden or Finland about how companies operate. I won't go into those in detail. Here's one little example from the United States, the Gila River Indians, who live in poverty, who can't support their communities because the river on which they depended for their sustenance was dammed so that the people in Phoenix could go water skiing. What principles do we hold about how the resources of the world can be allocated and distributed amongst us as humans? Do we hold any collective responsibility in our individual communities on a regional level, on a global level? The U.S. is spending, okay, you know what I mean by that. Can you imagine, go ahead, say $1 trillion. $1 trillion. Now take for a moment and imagine in your head what could be done with $1 trillion. Do you have some picture? Yes, Barbara? No, Barbara. It's okay to say no, Barbara. See, because I can't even hold 1 trillion in my head. I can barely hold a million in my head, but I can covet it, so I can kind of think about it. I can't even hold the idea of $1 million in my head, let alone what can be done with $1 trillion. I do know that it can go a long way toward alleviating poverty and suffering in many parts of the world. And do we have some collective global responsibility for the use of these resources? This was another example from the U.S. These people, do you know these people? The Waltons, they own Walmart. You don't have Walmart, do you? You're fighting. Thank you. Keep fighting. Fight. Don't let them in. Don't let them in.
They snuck in as Asda.
Aye, do something about that. These people own enormous wealth. There are 5 people in this family, and individually they own more money than 100 of the nations of the world. The GNP of 100 nations of the world, they have more wealth than that. It's extraordinary. And how much of that wealth do they hand out? Well, you can see the little slivers there. The little pink slivers represents part of what they give out. Okay, so healing and transformation. How do you transform a world? I've asked you to think about your vision. Well, continue to develop your vision and share this vision of the world that you want. We've learned some things from people who are doing this work about strategies. We've learned some things from those of you who have been doing this work about strategies that allow people to heal. You have learned, for instance, that giving people a chance to tell their story, giving people a chance to be listened to while they tell their story in a great variety of forms is a very useful thing and a huge step toward healing the human hurts, healing the human spirit, and allowing the healing of our communities to take place. So I'm going to add to what you already know about storytelling, about the release of emotions, about the release of painful emotions so that the spirit can heal, that breaking the silence, being heard, having voice, being heard, releasing the emotions, reconnecting with one's essential self, the truth about who one is, clarification, taking the time to think about the truth about oneself and the realities of the world and applying it in one's life, centering oneself and taking action, and that action must be directed toward ending oppression, because as long as there is injustice, there will continue to be conflict. As long as there are inequities in the distribution of the resources of the world, we will continue to fight each other. Humans will do that. And so, even though we start out with an inherent, inborn sense of justice and a desire for rightness in the world, a desire for our relationships to be in connection, in love, having been hurt will disbalance that inherent part of ourselves. And so we don't expect to have peace in the world as long as there is injustice. Healing ourselves and healing the world, transforming the world, ending oppression in all its manifestations: racism, sexism, classism, ableism, linguicism, anti-Semitism, ethno-religious oppression, ageism on both ends of the continuum, the oppression of elders, and the oppression of young people. All of these. Take action. Find something that you can do every day that helps to end the oppression, end the inequities, that helps to transform the world. This is one example. I pulled, a petition about rape in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. That's one simple thing that you can do. But you can find many things to do in your daily lives that reminds you of who you are, that reminds you of the power that you hold to transform this world on all its levels, the individual, the community, the regional, the global, that our collective responsibility is toward each other and toward the creation of a world in which the human potential has a chance to manifest itself. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you today.